Good afternoon, everyone. It is 2:01. I am Marla Hamilton with PIDC. So we welcome you to our continuing webinar series, trying to deliver relevant and critical information to you as you navigate through this pandemic. We are, again, excited to partner with the Small Business Administration, the Eastern District office right here in the Philadelphia region. We have been building the relationship with SBA since this pandemic began. We want to make sure that when you get information about what is happening with the SBA, we always say, go to the source. And so for the last year and a half, we have been working directly with the SBA to make sure that you are not getting secondhand information, but that you are getting it directly from the source. So today is no different. You know, we haven't heard about some of the SBA programs with the excitement that happened around the Paycheck Protection Program over the last year, and then with forgiveness of that. But today we are excited to get new information about the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. And so without prolonging this anymore, it is 2:03, and you know, we like to begin on time. So we have all of the time for you to hear the information, for you to ask any questions, and make sure that you are leaving well informed. This will not be the last time we have partnered with the SBA. We will repeat this session live on Tuesday, October 26th at 9:00 in the morning. And so if you think there is something that you missed on today, just make sure you're registering for October 26th at 9 in the morning. If within your entrepreneurial network, you know there are businesses that need this information and they are not making it today, make sure you share that information so that they are coming. One of the best things you can do as an entrepreneur is share the information that you get. So we've got everybody from the SBA here today with the Eastern District office. So I am going to start off with the head honcho here in the Philadelphia region. We've got Steve Dixell here. And so I'm going to turn it over to Steve, and then Steve will introduce the rest of his team. Steve, thanks so much for being with us today. Take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Marla. And let me also thank Ann Bovard-Nevins. It's great to be here with you virtually today. And thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today, as well as my team speak to you. As mentioned, my name is Steve Dixell, and joining me on today's call from SBA is Lead Economic Development Specialist Rob Goza, Public Information Officer Sonia Smith, and Economic Development Specialist Kim Stout, who will present to you on the EIDL loan updates. And at the conclusion of the program, we're going to send you a full PowerPoint, which you can utilize and take advantage of the SBA programs. Also, and speaking of assistance, I just want to update you on some numbers. As of September 30th, SBA has approved over 102,000 EIDL loans in Pennsylvania for more than $7 billion. We've also funded over 12,000 targeted EIDL advances in the state for more than $106 million. And finally, to help the smallest businesses in underserved Pennsylvania communities, SBA has funded over 9,000 supplemental targeted EIDL advances for more than $49 million. And yes, there is still more funding available, but you need to get it done before December 31st when Covet EIDL expires. So now is the time to get your application in before time runs out. Also, as you may be aware, potential EIDL applicants needing help with applications can also leverage one of SBA's resource partner organizations for help. These organizations are SCORE, Small Business Development Centers, Women Business Centers, and our new Veteran Business Outreach Centers, serving veterans in the Mid-Atlantic region to help businesses stay in business, recover, and even grow. More so, during times of emergency and disaster like the current pandemic, SBA's mission is particularly important. Legislation such as the CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan created a variety of powerful SBA programs which provided economic relief in the form of the EIDL loan and Paycheck Protection Program, which has injected nearly $36 billion into the Pennsylvania economy as a result of the legislation and since the pandemic began. Also, SBA recently deployed grant funds for the Restaurant Revitalization Program and the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, which has helped many small businesses survive the COVID pandemic and to make it to the other side. Marla, I just want to thank you again for the opportunity to present this information to you today. My team is always available to your organization. And at this time, I'll turn it over to our lead presenter, Economic Development Specialist, Kim Stout.
Okay, thank you very much. Just give me a second here and I will get my screen shared for everyone. All right, as Steve said, my name is Kim Stout. I'm with the U.S. Small Business Administration out of the Eastern Pennsylvania District Office. We're going to cover a couple of the COVID relief programs briefly today, and then we're going to jump into focus on the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program and the changes that have come about with that particular program. The U.S. Small Business Administration has been very busy over the last 20-some months working on disaster assistance. However, we're typically here in any stage of small business, whether you're looking to start your business, grow, expand, and of course, during this time, recover. So regardless of what stage, you can always reach out to us. Our resource partners that Steve mentioned earlier in his introduction, SCORE, the Small Business Development Centers, the Women's Business Centers, and our Veterans Business Outreach Centers are all here to assist you and get you to the stage of business that you're looking to get to. During the COVID pandemic, you probably have been in touch with us. As Marla mentioned, Sonia and I have been working quite a bit with PIDC over the last several months or a year and a half to make sure that your members and your small businesses in the area are aware or were aware of these programs. We offered the Paycheck Protection Program in round 1 and round 2. If you have received the Paycheck Protection Program, please make sure that you have filed for forgiveness when the appropriate time to file for forgiveness is, so that you don't have to pay any of that program back. We offered debt relief in our SBA traditional loan programs. That was inclusive of our SBA 7A, 504, and our microloans. The first program that was initiated was the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. That's the program that we're going to focus on today because it continues to be available to our small businesses. And then earlier this year, we had the Shuttered Venues Operators Grant and the Restaurant Revitalization Funds. This is just some numbers that you can take a look at to see how busy the SBA has been to make sure that these programs are getting out to our small businesses. You can see for each one of the programs what numbers were offered, the number of loans, but also the number of dollars that have been out nationally, but also in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This goes over the Restaurant Revitalization Fund numbers. With the RRF, the national program, you can see there in Pennsylvania, we had 3,530 grants issued for quite some dollars out there to help save our businesses, our restaurants. Then the Shuttered Venues Operators Grant is also listed there. We had over 10,000 of those nationally with 369 grants here in Pennsylvania. Also with the debt relief programs that provided debt relief on our programs, that concluded almost towards the end of September, but there was a lot of savings for our small businesses who had our traditional 7A, 504, and microloan programs. Okay, so the show that we're here today to talk about is our Economic Injury Disaster Loan. This was, as I mentioned earlier, the first program that was initiated when the president declared COVID to be a federal disaster. That's when our Office of Disaster stepped in with the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. With this particular program, it is open until December 31st. However, you must be approved by December 31st, or when appropriations run out, funding runs out. So if you have not applied for the economic injury disaster loan and you're interested in doing so, we highly recommend that you do that as soon as possible. We're already through mid-October. We want to make sure that we're here today. And again, Marla has us back in 2 weeks to go through this program. We want to make sure that our small businesses have the opportunity to apply or to apply for an increase if they have not done so already. But time's clicking, so you got to get moving on it if you haven't applied or you want to apply for that increase. With this particular program, the reason that we want to come back and talk about it is because of how generous it is for our small businesses. As you see there, the interest rate for for-profit businesses is 3.75% for the term of the loan, and the loan is 30 years. Okay, so that can be a pretty low payment if you just borrow a small amount of money. But you know, it's an interest rate of 3.75%. You have 30 years to pay it back, and we've offered a 24-month deferment, 2 years. Now that deferment starts from the time that you get your first disbursement. So if you received a disbursement of the economic injury disaster loan when this program first came out in 2020, that starts that time for your 2-year deferment. If you get an increase, your deferment has already been tracking. So you want to make sure you recognize that your first payment will be due 2 years from the date of the note, your first disbursement. There's lots of uses that you can use for this small business loan. It's fairly flexible. You can use your COVID idle funds for almost any normal operating expenses. It is a working capital loan. And this also is also being allowed for you to use to pay off business debt. So the reason that the COVID EIDL program was put in place is for working capital for businesses that are suffering because of the pandemic. We want you to use the funds. You are to use the funds for your operating expenses to make payments on things that you are unable to because of the pandemic. It's fairly flexible, like it lists there. It's working capital, and we're going to go into some of the changes that recently were announced for the funds, for the use of funds here in a couple of slides. With the economic injury disaster loan, this is the time that you apply directly with the Small Business Administration, with us and our Office of Disaster Assistance. You go directly online and submit your application. Typically with our traditional SBA loans, you're working with one of our lending partners, but in time of disaster, we're here to take those loans directly. They go through the portal online, and we'll go through that link here in just a few minutes. All right, so for the benefits of the small business, again, as I mentioned earlier, the terms are extremely friendly. You have 30 years to pay this back. We have a low interest rate for for-profits at 3.75%. I think I forgot to mention that nonprofits, their interest rate is 2.75%. That's extremely low. That helps lower the payments for you and help you cash flow your small business. There's an example there for a $10,000 COVID EIDL loan. If you took a $10,000 loan, you're looking at a $46 payment per month over 30 years. There's no penalty if you prepay that loan within the 30 years. But we're trying to make sure that this capital is available to our small businesses so that they have time to recover, bring in revenue, and not be strained or stressed with their cash flow. The uses for this, there's just some examples there. You can use the COVID EIDL funds for credit card payments, payroll, for rent that you've accumulated. Maybe your landlord was gracious enough not to charge you rent for a couple of months during the pandemic. You can collect the EIDL funds, pay that landlord back, and catch up on your rent moving forward. And also to increase your cost of goods sold. So with the economic injury disaster loan, if you have not applied and you're interested in doing so, you need to do so shortly. The cutoff is December 31st for you to be approved. That does not mean you need to wait till December 31st to put your application in. You have to be approved by that date, and you want to make sure that you get through the process. So we do encourage you to do it as soon as possible. Small businesses that have less than 500 employees are eligible for the economic injury disaster loan. This is including our sole proprietorships and our self-employed businesses. We are looking for a credit score of at least 570. And you have to be able to prove that you were in business before January 31st of 2020. If you were in the process of starting your business, let's say you signed a lease in December of 2019, you'll have to be able to provide documentation that you were in process of launching your small business to be eligible for the economic injury disaster loan. The application process is very user-friendly. It's a quick application that you can actually do on your mobile phone. You'll supply your information about your small business, your annual revenue, your cost of goods, your bank account information. The hardest part is to make sure that you enter your information correctly. A lot of the hiccups that we've seen in the application approval process is information gets transposed on the application. People are rushing, they submit the wrong email address, they've messed up numbers in their bank account information, things like that. And that just delays the ability to be approved because you have to go back and prove what is the legitimate, correct information. So please, if you haven't applied yet, when you are applying, go through that process, with time and being able to sit down and make sure that your information is correct. You are able to edit the application before you fully submit it. The loan amount, is listed there of how it is calculated. And our loan officers are using the 2019 tax returns to look at what your annual revenue was. And they subtract the annual cost of goods and multiply it by 2. And that determines your loan amount. We are asking for federal tax returns, financial statements, and we are asking that you submit the IRS form 4506T. When you complete the 4506T, please make sure that you have the information that matches your 2019 tax returns. Some people have changed addresses, etc. The information needs to match so that your tax transcripts can be found and be identical to what you submitted on your tax returns. Just about a month ago, a little over a month ago, we had some policy changes with the COVID economic injury disaster loan. When the program originally came out in 2020, the maximum amount that you were able to apply for was $150,000. Earlier this year, in March or April, it went up to $500,000. So as of September 8th, a little over a month ago, there has been a policy change to increase the cap of the economic injury disaster loan from $500,000 to $2 million. As of October 8th, that's when we started reviewing these requests to see if you are eligible for that dollar amount. You can submit the increase request, and you could do so through the portal. Also, some changes affected what you were able to use the funds for. You are able to apply the funds to payment and prepayment of commercial debt and regularly scheduled federal debt payments. So previously, you were not allowed to use this at all for any federal debt. But if you have a payment that you are regularly scheduled for as federal debt, you can use the EIDL funds for that, the COVID EIDL funds. Also, originally, the deferment was not at 24 months, and we went ahead and extended that deferment for 24 months, 2 years from the date of the note when the first disbursement was made. There's been some changes to the affiliation as well. We have a couple of slides that will go over that. And we wanted to make additional ways for our size standards for businesses aside this specific NAICS code. We have a couple slides in a few minutes to go over that as well. But that basically includes industries uniquely impacted by the pandemic and have continued to experience economic hardship. That applies especially to, and I have the list coming up here, like our food industry, things along those lines. And we added a $10 million limit on maximum aggregate COVID EIDL loans to a single corporation. This introduces a maximum cap to some of our corporate groups. This slide is probably the most important slide, in my opinion, of this presentation because it puts the EIDL loan right in front of you, what's required for the different dollar amounts. For the COVID EIDL, for loans up to 25,000, all the way up to 2 million, as you see there, are for-profit businesses. The interest stays the same throughout the terms of the loan at 3.75%. For our nonprofits, it's 2.75%, and all COVID EIDL loans are 30 years. Again, the deferments are up to 24 months. If you did not receive that initially, SBA will make the adjustment on those loans, on the initial loans that are now receiving a 24-month deferment. The minimum credit score for loans under $500,000 is 570. For those loans that are above 500,000 up to 2 million, you see there that score changes to 625. You also see that our collateral and the personal guarantee changes depending on the dollar amount. So for our small loans, $25,000 or less, we do not ask for collateral and we do not ask for a personal guarantee. And I saw the question about personal guarantees that popped up initially when we started our PowerPoint here. For loans less than 200,000, you do not have to sign a personal guarantee, but anything $200,000 or more is going to require that personal guarantee. Collateral also is required for loans $25,000 or more. For our loans up to 500,000, we are filing a blanket UCC on business assets. For loans that are greater than 500,000 up to the 2 million mark, we're filing the blanket UCC on business assets, but also business real estate. And finally, at the bottom there, you can see what the use of funds can be utilized with the COVID EIDL. Normal operating business expenses, things that you had, bills that you had prior to the pandemic, rent, inventory, now commercial debt, now federal debt with regular scheduled payments, and essentially working capital. As of September 8th, the maximum loan went up to $2 million. We were not approving loans up to $2 million until October 8th. So we are now at October 13th. Those requests are now being reviewed by our loan officers. These next couple slides are just going to repeat the information of the changes that we had with the COVID EIDL program. This one, of course, just references the permanent use of the funds with the COVID EIDL loans. Basically, before it was working capital, normal business operations, anything that you were unable to pay because of the pandemic. The changes to the program now allows you to make payments on conventional debt, monthly payments at deferred interest or prepayments on commercial debt or conventional debt. And then the other new one, again, is the regularly scheduled payments on federal loans. Prior to some of these changes, an applicant was required to consider affiliation based on ownership, stock options, convertible securities, which isn't traditionally completed by lenders. The change with the rules in September is that now COVID EIDL is going to match the definition of the affiliate businesses from our Restaurant Revitalization Fund program. It just makes it a little more easy to understand and simplify the rules. Other changes: expand methods of eligibility for the industries hit hardest. I'll show you those NAICS codes here in just a couple of minutes. Basically, businesses now can meet COVID size standards if they fall into certain NAICS codes. They don't employ more than 500 employees per physical location, and together with their affiliates have no more than 20 locations. This also creates a limit on total loans to a single corporation. Prior to these changes in September, there was no limit. The change now is that entities that are a part of a single corporate group may not receive COVID EIDL loans in aggregate of more than $10 million. Again, this is repeating much of the same thing that we just talked about with the size standards. I want to pull up this one here just for any of our small businesses that are on today. These are the NAICS codes, the beginning of the NAICS codes that are affected by the changes with the COVID EIDL size standards. A lot of it is the industries that we know that are having, that are continuing to suffer because of the pandemic: our food industry, personal beverages, leasing services, etc. This is the affiliation rules. These presentations are going to be coming out to you guys. I've repeated this a number of times, but this will go into a little bit more of a sample for you. These slides will be coming out to you shortly after today's presentation. Okay, so basically with the application of the COVID EIDL and the timelines, that's what we're going to cover here. If you have not applied for the COVID economic injury disaster loan, you can take one of two paths. You can apply for the $500,000 immediately and then the increase. What you want to do is see if you're eligible for that particular amount. You can see the requirements and eligibility on our website. I'll put that up here in a few minutes. You'll complete the intake form and the application, and you'll receive a decision within 3 weeks. If you're approved, you'll follow the steps for the increase for over $500,000. And again, this is for new applicants. We're going to talk about the people who have already applied and would be interested in increase in just a second. If you are a new applicant and you're looking for the $500,000 or less, again, you'll follow the steps of completing the, you want to make sure you meet all the eligibility requirements. We have lots of information on our website for that. Complete the intake form and complete the application through the portal. If you have applied for the COVID EIDL and you are now interested in an increase, what you want to do is go to your portal and submit the increase via the portal. You should have an increase button. If you were already in the process of, you received $150,000, you were going through the process of the $500,000, but you have not received that yet. You're still in that time period of waiting or going through the application process. And now you're interested for the $2 million if you're eligible. You want to make sure that you wait to receive the $500,000 increase and then submit the request for the increase of $2 million. We've been told by our disaster team that will just help you through the process a little bit faster, getting the first increase and then the second increase. If you've already received the funds and you're eligible for that increase, you follow the steps on this right-hand side of how to apply for that increase. You go to your portal. There should be a button for you to submit, and you will be requested to submit documentations once they answer that request. These are the documents that we are going to require for the $500,000 loans or more. As I mentioned, we're determining your loan application amount or your loan amount through your 2019 federal business and your federal income tax returns. You'll have to supply the standard resolution and certification, schedule of liabilities, list of real estate owned, and a personal financial statement for the sole proprietors and independent contractors. This is what the resolution and certification sheet looks like. Again, the same thing as when you're filling out your application, please make sure you're filling out the information that's required. Here it states that in addition to filling out the name of the company and the naming officer or owners, the business entity representative must complete the certification at the bottom of the page, sign, and list the date the resolution was passed by the organization. So you just want to make sure you're detail oriented and complete the information accurately and correctly. This is what the schedule of liabilities would look like that you would need to submit. Any collateral owned by the business. Okay. And those would be what's required moving forward. Okay. For the closing documents, these are going to be needed to process loans over $500,000. Each of these documents will be generated through the portal and uploaded into the applicant's portal through to DocuSign. You'll be given a loan authorization agreement. If you have an increase versus your initial loan request, the loan authorization and agreement are amended. You'll be provided with a promissory note or a modified note if this is an increase. The security agreement, or again, the amended security agreement, and guarantees or the amended guarantees if it was approved under the 500,000. These closing documents will also be needed for loans over the 500,000 when the real estate collateral is available for the loan. You'll have to provide the mortgage, other state specified real estate security documents, deed, etc. And if needed, you'll have to supply any additional state or county requirements and certification of federal flood insurance. This is just an idea of what the time frame is for the applicants for your request in completing the steps. For the applications of funds with less than $500,000, you're looking at about a 3-week process. For applications over 500,000, you're looking at 6 weeks. So if you're just starting this process initially, you have not applied for anything yet, you're looking at potentially 9 weeks. And as I mentioned, we're already at October 13th. So if you have not applied for the COVID EIDL, we do recommend that you do that as soon as possible. And again, the list there at the bottom is just required documents that a loan officer is going to request from you. You can apply for this program directly through the SBA website. The Covet or the SBA.gov/EIDL website lists a lot of the good information, facts and FNQs and eligibility and all kinds of information about the particular loan program, just to make sure that you are eligible for the program or for the increase. You can take the sample intake. There's a checklist to make sure you have everything prepared and ready to go. You go in to submit the application, and then you have the portal checklist as well. Here are some additional resources that if you have questions after today's presentation, you can always reference or reach out to. We do have our customer service number that is open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Our customer service center is dealing directly with COVID EIDL. So that would be my first suggestion, is to reach out to our customer service. We do have the website full of information, and we always suggest that you go to our website, go to sba.gov/updates to request our e-newsletters. Any changes to the programs, any changes to upcoming events or upcoming programs are announced through the e-newsletters. So when SVOG came out and the restaurant grant came out and so forth, it's initially announced through the newsletter so that our small businesses can get that information timely. You can also follow us on Twitter. The other thing I would suggest is if you're looking for one-on-one assistance, whether it's through now because of the pandemic or in future because you're looking to grow your business, certainly go to our local assistance website. We have our partners such as SCORE, the Small Business Development Center, our Women's Business Center, and our Veterans Business Outreach Centers who are here to help. They've been very, very helpful. They've worked very hard over the last couple of months to make sure that they've stayed in touch. They've stayed up to date on the SBA loan programs, on the SBA relief programs, so that they could get in touch and in front of as many small businesses as possible to answer their questions as well. And of course, for more information, we have our general website too. Just some quick questions. How do you apply for the COVID EIDL? You go to that website, sba.gov/EIDL. It's fairly easy to use, in my opinion. There's a button in the middle, application. The hardest thing is just making sure that your information is accurate and correct on that application, so it doesn't have, you don't have any hiccups down the road. Making sure that the emails are correct, the dates are correct, the bank account information is correct, things like that. If you have submitted an application and you were denied and you feel that you were incorrectly denied, you can submit a reconsideration for the loan. There are instructions on your denial letter of how to submit that reconsideration. And you send it to a specific email address, so it goes to a specific department so they can review your application. We've been dealing with millions and millions and millions of applications. The process for applying and through the reconsideration and increases has been reviewed, looked at. We've been processing more and more loans every day. We're trying to always improve that process. So the increased backlog was focused to be closed by August. And again, how long is this program available? As of now, December 31st, 2021, but your loan must be approved by December 31st. You don't want to wait to apply for this program until that date because you will not be approved all in one day. Okay, I'm just going to go over the targeted and the supplemental EIDL advance. These are additional programs that were added through the CARES Act, through the American Recovery Act, to help get some of our small businesses funding that they do not have to pay back. So essentially the targeted advance and the supplemental targeted advance is grant funding. You may be eligible up to $15,000. You have to be an eligible small business, and I will go over the criteria in just a few minutes, but you must be eligible to receive this funding. You don't pay it back. The first thing you do is apply through the economic injury disaster loan application. You can be declined for the economic injury disaster loan and still receive the grant funds. You can also refuse to take the EIDL loan and accept the grant funds. But to possibly apply for these programs, the only thing that you can do is apply for the economic injury disaster loan through the application. Small businesses, including our sole proprietors, our independent contractors, and private nonprofit organizations are eligible to apply. Agricultural enterprises are not eligible for the targeted advance or the supplemental targeted advance. For the advances, there's no action necessary by you, the applicant, except for applying for the economic injury disaster loan. If the SBA sees that you are eligible for this program, you will be contacted by the SBA directly through an email invitation. Please understand that when you receive an email from the SBA, it will always have sba.gov at the end. You want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence to make sure that you're applying and accepting emails through legitimate sources. For the targeted EIDL advance, only businesses and nonprofits that are applied for the economic injury disaster loan and are in a low income community and have suffered greater than 30% economic loss and have fewer than 300 employees or 300 or fewer employees are eligible for the targeted advance. You have to meet that criteria to receive the $10,000. If you received an EIDL advance back in 2020, when the program was first announced through the CARES Act, you may have been able to receive $1,000 per employee. So at that particular time, if you had 2 employees, you received $2,000. With the Economic Aid Act being passed, they went back to complete that $10,000. You would be now receiving $8,000. So we're trying to make the previous balance full to $10,000. If you applied back in 2020 and there was no funding allocated or no funding left for that particular program and you didn't receive the advance and you're eligible for it, we are sending the $10,000 to those that are eligible. We, the SBA, is emailing those who may qualify with instructions on how to determine eligibility and submit the required documentation to receive the targeted EIDL advance. What are we looking for? You must be able to submit your 2019 federal tax returns. We'll be asking for EIN and Social Security numbers specified on the original economic injury disaster loan application. We're going to be looking for monthly gross receipts from 2019, 2020, and any months that are completed in 2021. That would be through September at this point. We want confirmation that the information on the original application is still accurate. And if you've made any changes, it will require a manual review and you'll have to be able to provide us with documentation of those changes. You will also need to be signing a 4560T for us to be able to obtain your tax transcripts to make sure that we can process the information and all the information makes you eligible and matches and you fit into the criteria. You can only request one submission for the targeted EIDL advance. Please, again, carefully review the bank account information that you submit. We've had some hiccups along the way where bank account information changes. So you want to make sure, or information was submitted incorrectly, you want to make sure that you submit your bank account information accurately, correctly, because this is how you will be receiving the funds. We will put an ACH deposit into the bank account that you provided. If we are unable to obtain your tax transcripts directly from the IRS, we'll contact you for alternative documentation. If you were declined the targeted EIDL advance and you believe that you are eligible for the program, you can submit a reevaluation to the targeted advance reevaluation at sba.gov email address. Now we're going to change gears slightly to the supplemental targeted advance. This is, again, you have to submit an application for the economic injury disaster loan. You had to have complete the targeted advance application to be considered for this particular program. Again, we, the SBA, will reach out to those directly who may qualify. And then this is an additional $5,000 on top of the targeted EIDL advance of $10,000. Again, we put this $5,000 directly into your bank account, so you want to make sure that you provide us with accurate bank account information. If you were declined for the supplemental targeted advance and you believe that you are eligible, you can submit a reevaluation the same way that you did for the targeted advance at the email address targetedadvancereevaluation@sba.gov. To be eligible for the supplemental targeted advance, you have to be located in a low-income community. The SBA does not determine the low-income communities. That's determined by the census. And there is a mapping tool that you can use on that link there to see if you are in a low-income community. You also had to have suffered greater than a 50% economic loss during an 8-week period beginning or after March 2nd, 2020. And you have to compare that to the same period of the previous year. So just to make it simple, if you're using the 8-week period of March 2nd, 2020, you're going to compare that to the time period of March 2nd, 2019. And for this particular loan program, you are you're a micro business, you have 10 employees or fewer. Okay, I believe we're almost to the end here. I'm just going to go through here quickly. Just again, I want to reiterate that we have lots of great partners that we help fund through the country, and especially here in Eastern Pennsylvania. If you're looking for assistance now or in the future, SCORE, our SBDCs, our small business development centers, our women's business centers, and our veterans business outreach centers are all here to assist you. It's at no cost to you to have a mentor to give you guidance, to help you down a path to grow your business or to answer questions that you might have. To use SCORE, you can go to score.org, you put in your zip code. We do have a Philadelphia SCORE chapter. All these mentors are volunteering their time to give back to our small business community to make our small businesses stronger. The small business development centers, we have 16 of them in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. In the Philadelphia area, we have the Temple Small Business Development Center and the Widener University Small Business Development Center. Again, their business consultants are here to support you. They stayed on top of our programming for the relief during the pandemic and will continue to assist our small businesses now and with their future needs. Even if it's marketing, business planning, etc., they're trained to help you. Our Women's Business Center, the Women's Business Enterprise Center East, is in Center City, Philadelphia. They have received funding to focus on women entrepreneurs, but they don't discriminate. They help all genders and are here as well. Sonia and I work with them quite a bit to make sure our small businesses are getting the support they need. And then, of course, our Veteran Business Outreach Center. If you are a member of the military or you have a military spouse that's looking to start a business or to grow a business or is in need to help with relief for their businesses, we have the University of Maryland that helps serve the Eastern Pennsylvania area, and we'll be happy to get in touch with them. I'm going to skip to the end here. This is our contact information. Again, my name's Kim Stout. The easiest way to contact me is via email. We are not physically in our location at the office yet, but we are here to support you in whatever questions you may have. And I think with that, I'll just skip to the back here and go to any questions that we might have, because I know we're running out of time. All right, so there's our local pages for assistance, and we'll go with that. And Sonia is my coworker who's on answering questions today, so her information is listed there as well. All right, Sonia, do we have anything we need to address for those that are listening?
Hey, Kim, I think I've just about covered everything. So for those people that perhaps are just listening on their phone and don't see their chat, I'll just give a brief overview of questions that we've had. So let me just go through this here. So one of the questions that we had that was answered was, what's the maximum amount of an EIDL that you can have without the personal guarantee? And that has to be under 200,000. A person also wanted to know that they received a decline with unverifiable information. What do they need to submit with that? And so you need to submit a complete copy, including all schedules of your 2019 federal taxes, another completed 4506T form. And just make sure that every single thing on that 4506T form is written the same way that it is written on your federal taxes. A completed SBA form 2202, which is a schedule of liabilities, a voided check that matches the bank account that you supplied on your application, and a copy of the front and back of a valid form of identification, for example, a driver's license or a passport. Someone was interested in government contracting. So to learn more about government contracting, we do a webinar once a month, usually on the last Thursday of the month. Our next one is scheduled for October the 28th. If you simply go to sba.gov/PA, you can view our small business events calendar and scroll down to October 28th, and you'll see there are 2 workshops there. There are 2 different times. One is on doing business with the federal government, and one is on federal government certifications. Someone wanted to know about the minimum credit score needed for EIDL. So it's either 570 or what was the other one, 625?
Yeah, above 500,000 is 625.
Thank you. And Kim did mention what the average approval time has been. Bear in mind that is if you submit a totally perfectly correct application with no questions, that come from the loan officer. So the approval times are longer if the loan officer needs additional information from you. Can EIDL be used to repay bank loans? You can use EIDL to make monthly payments and prepayments on commercial business debt. You can only make monthly payments with EIDL on federal debt. So for example, if you have a 7A, 504 or a microloan, you can only make monthly payments. What if you are launching a business? If you started being in operation on or between January 1 and January 31 of 2020, you will need your 2020 federal income taxes, including all schedules. If you don't have those, you need to submit internally or externally prepared business financial statements, including a balance sheet and a profit and loss statement. And of course, our resource partners can help you with that. Let's see here. Some people had questions on the reconsideration email box. That mailbox is operational. So if you need to send an email to the reconsideration department, you are able to do that. And
I know you have a lot there, Sonia. Yeah, I do see one here that came in that asked about EIDL advance went to the wrong account, and they sent in a voided check. They feel that and they resubmitted it. It does take some time to clear bank account information if it was submitted wrong, or if something went wrong with the transaction or your bank sent it back. What I'm going to ask is that the person who submitted that question, if you could email your information to PIDC, include your economic injury disaster loan application number, give us a narrative as to what's happening. One of our team members can look in to see what's happening. But please use that route of going through PIDC so that we know that it came through this presentation today.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. And that's why it's so important. You know, when you sit down to complete the application, Make sure you have a voided check with you. Make sure you have your 2019 taxes. So when you fill out the application and when you fill out the 4506T, everything will be correct. Just little mistakes are, are caught, and then people in SBA need to investigate it thoroughly to make sure that this is actually, is it a mistake, or is it fraud, or is it something else? So just be careful, about submitting everything absolutely correctly. Also, the email that you use, please try not to change your email in between when you submitted your application and when you're notified of the funding. And of course, the same thing with your checking account. Things like that, are flags. And we want to make sure there isn't any fraud, waste, or abuse in the SBA loan programs.
Yeah, and sometimes we've found out too that some of these online lending institutions aren't accepting deposits from the SBA for whatever the reasons are. But, some of these banks that are just initially were available online, we've had some hiccups with them as well.
Yeah, and then there's just one more here from Nanette. She said the system wouldn't recognize her login ID. I would just encourage you to call the 1-800 customer service number. I don't know why that is. You just want to make sure that you're using the same computer that you did your application on. So it is you that put in the application, and that it is you again that is going to send the emails and access your portal. But if you're having problems,
sorry, Sonia.
Yeah, if you're having problems with that, call the 800 number.
Yeah, any issues with the portal has to go through the customer service. So it's the 800 number or disaster customer service at sba.gov.
And we have another question here. Is the loan officer on the grant the same loan officer evaluating the EIDL loan reconsideration? We don't know the answer to that. All we know is that it whenever you send information in, it goes into a queue. So it doesn't even mean that the same loan officer is working on your specific application. That's why the best thing to do is whenever you send in any documentation, to send it to that specific email box, because it always goes into a queue, and then it's pulled when you get to the top of the queue.
Okay, thank you, Sonia. I think at this particular time, we reviewed all of the questions. We will have PIDC send out the PowerPoint presentation as well as a one-pager regarding the economic injury disaster loan. Thank you, PIDC, for hosting us. We really appreciate the opportunity to speak with the businesses today, and we really appreciate you having us.
Well, on behalf of PIDC, I want to thank Kimberly and Sonia. Always do such an outstanding job in explaining, taking their time to make sure that everyone understands the information that's being provided. So a lot of this information, it can be overwhelming, but Kimberly and Sonia were very, very patient. We're going to make sure that you get a copy of this presentation. It is vitally important for those of you who were on the call, for those of you who have networks beyond those who were not on this call. You have until, I would say, even though the deadline is the end of December, you should try to get your application in before Thanksgiving. And so give yourself plenty of time. That glitches may occur, technology issues may occur. You don't want to find yourself not getting that application in because of some issue that could have been resolved earlier. So my suggestion is you start working on the application, gathering all of the documents that are needed, and commit yourself to getting this information in as soon as possible, but absolutely before Thanksgiving. I would say November 1, give yourself, so today is the 13th, we're halfway through October. I would say give yourself November 1st as your deadline to get this information in. We're going to host a repeat of today's webinar on Tuesday, October 26th at 9 o'clock in the morning. So if there's something that you missed today, please make sure you register and come again. Steve Dixell, thank you so much for your support of PIDC and everything that we have been trying to do collaboratively with all of the counties over this last 19 months. It has been an amazing opportunity to see everyone coming together for a common cause. So thank you so much for your leadership in the Philadelphia region and the Philadelphia office. To Mike Kane, thank you. Mike, you know, you're always available for us. You're always willing to answer our questions. Rob Goza, we're always in the same places, it seems. And that's a good thing because it speaks to the commitment of these economic development organizations to make sure that businesses in our region get all of the resources that they need. So whether you're coming to PIDC, you're going to SBA, you're going to Temple and the Small Business Development Center at Widener, whether it's the women's business, there are so many resources that are available for free. So this is all for free. One of the other advantages of the economic injury disaster loan, we found that so many small businesses had challenges finding a bank with the Paycheck Protection Program. Unlike that program, this program, Economic Injury Disaster Loan, you apply directly to the SBA. So there is no bank in the middle to vet you. You are applying directly to the SBA, but take your time, go slow. Just like Kimberly said, make sure your bank information, your routing numbers, your social security numbers, make sure all your EINs, make sure all of those numbers are accurate. So when the SBA is vetting, reviewing, analyzing your application, and they are ready to deposit money into your account, that they've got the right information. So I am going to, that is it for me. I'm going to say, Steve, why don't you close us out?
Well, thank you very much, Marla, and thank you very much for all your hard work and dedication to the community. It's greatly appreciated. You know, we've all lived through this kind of challenging time here, but at the same time, you know, my team here in Eastern PA, is here to provide resources during these times, and we're grateful for the opportunity to do that. Also, too, thank you for recognizing my team. Kim, you did a phenomenal job today. That was really outstanding. Great work. Also, too, Sonia Smith, phenomenal. Rob Goza and Mike Kane, all great colleagues and so dedicated. And it's just really wonderful to work with so many people that are on board and that, sync up together and recognize that this is a time of need and this is a time of opportunity, and it's also a time to be responsive. So we thank you again, Marla, for this opportunity. And everybody have a great rest of your day. Bye.